Have you played Pick 6 from DraftKings yet? What are you waiting for? You better get on it. The playoffs are here and time is running out. As the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, DraftKings does fantasy sports like no one else. Play for better payouts on Pick 6. It's super easy to get started. Select 2 or more players, choose if they'll have more or less of a stat like touchdowns, yardage, sacks, and more. Pick 6 is available in most states including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. And DraftKings is making it even sweeter for the first timers. New Pick 6 customers play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Win more cash on Pick 6. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 is not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 30 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Episode 94 of the Habs Culture podcast. My name is Justin Schwartz alongside Liam Baum. It has been a really long time since we've recorded, October 15th to be exact, and a lot has gone on in that time span. Obviously, from a personal lives perspective, school, sports, life gets in the way, and unfortunately, we haven't found the time to be consistent and stay consistent. We told ourselves that for the second half of the year or semester, school semester, that we were going to be a lot more consistent and be back, try and be back every week, but at least every 2 weeks. And that's kind of where we're shooting for right now. But nonetheless, it has been a while and there is a lot to talk about. So we do want to get into that right away. But it wouldn't be an episode if I didn't turn it over to my friend Liam and ask him how he's feeling to be here on January 8th.
Yep.
So almost 3 months later after we had recorded the last episode 93. How are you feeling, Liam?
It's been good. Happy to be back, but like you said, a lot has changed in the last 3 months in terms of the Canadiens. I think the last title of our episode, like disaster, it was something like a disaster is happening in Montreal, and now it's kind of taken like a whole 360. So we're gonna get into all that, and I think we're both excited to see what the next couple months hold for the Canadiens. So let's get into it.
So let's get into it. I'm going to kind of recap a bit, Liam, and you're going to kind of interject when you feel it's necessary. But I'm going to go as far back, and we agreed that we're going to go as far back as 16 games ago. 16 games ago, if I'm not mistaken, brings us to December 3rd against the Islanders. Am I correct with that, Liam?
Yeah. Yes, you are.
Where Patrik Laine makes his return to the Montreal Canadiens lineup, or I wouldn't say return, makes his debut as a Montreal Canadien in the regular season after his knee injury that he suffered in the preseason. The Habs go on to win that game 2-1. Laine scores a power play goal, and the rest is honestly history because ever since Laine has entered the lineup, he's been a power play goal machine. And I wouldn't say pretty much strictly that. He's obviously trying to find his game at the 5-on-5 level, which he has been doing alongside Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook. But needless to say is that he's brought something to this lineup that the Canadiens did not have beforehand, and it has bumped everyone down the lineup into their respective spots, into the spots that they should have been playing to start the season back in October. And now this Canadian team is starting to string some things together. Since Laine joined the team, the Habs are 11-5. Since Carrier joined the team, the Habs are 7-2. Now we'll get into the Carrier part after, but 11-5 since since Laine joined the lineup. They went 8-2 in December, if I'm not mistaken. They beat the 3 or 4 previous Stanley Cup champions, which is ridiculous in and of itself. How do you feel about Laine being in this lineup? And obviously, it's all going to be positive things, but more from a micro perspective.
Yeah, I mean, just right off the bat, this is something the Canadiens have never had, and we kind of missed like the start of this and like the whole hyped up part when he was scoring every single game. But it's honestly crazy that the Canadiens finally found a guy who can score a power play goal. I've never been more excited to turn on the TV when Montreal's on a power play and we're finally able to establish some possession in the offensive zone, and that we just have a threat. So, you know, all the defense can try whatever to defend against Laine, but at the end of the day, he's still able to put the puck in the net. So it's just super exciting to finally have something like that. And like you said, everyone's finally in a position where it feels like they should be playing, and maybe even lower in the lineup than they should be playing. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But the lines are clicking right now. The power play seems to be working. I don't know if you have the team stats pulled up, but
Yep.
in the last 16 games, Montreal's penalty kill, power play, and just record overall has been absolutely amazing. And I think that reflects how they have positioned themselves in the standings as well. So as we can see, the player stats here, Laine, we'll call it 12 games because he came out early in the Columbus game, but having 8 goals coming off of a relatively serious knee injury is still super impressive. And again, we're going to get into some other stuff later, but contract situation, you got to think that Laine's going to be earning a pretty good contract when it comes to that re-signing point.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And look, I don't know what his thoughts are at the given moment, right? Only 12 and about a period games under his belt as a Montreal Canadien. I'm sure that the sentiment of him towards the team and the team towards him is probably very mutual in terms of, well, the Habs are able to bring in a guy that's able to score at every level, every single level. Every shot that he takes is pretty much a threat. And that's something that the Canadiens as a team have been missing for years and years and years, since Max Pacioretty, I would say. That's how, and I mean, look, granted, Cole Caulfield is an elite sniper. We know that. But to have a guy that could really score from anywhere in the offensive zone is something that you don't take for granted. And I think that, and I've explained this to you, or not explained it, we've had this conversation. I've had this conversation with many people. I think that even though his game at 5-on-5 hasn't been where we've wanted it to be at, in the early goings of his time in Montreal, I think that what it's allowed the Canadiens to do is say, well, okay, Josh Anderson, make your way down to the third line. Okay, we're going to bump down Alex Newhook. So now these guys are playing lesser roles, granted, important minutes, but they're playing in a lineup. They're playing in this lineup where they should have been playing all along. And Laine is always going to be a top 6. There's no doubt about that. But it's a question of who he bumps down and now Anderson as a third line winger doesn't look so bad. Emil Heineman and Armia on the fourth line wings does not look so bad. So it's all about the effects of him entering into the lineup and how it affects others around him.
And honestly, I mean, maybe you can even say the less minutes that third line is playing, the more productive they've actually been. Like if we're taking a look at Jake Evans' first half of the season and Heineman's first half of the season compared to the last 20 games, look at those stats. They speak for themselves. They're playing better. And just in terms of the penalty kill, like Evans and Armia have been absolutely outstanding, bringing the Habs power play at like over 94% in the last stretch there. So it's crazy how it works that sometimes you just need to play a lesser role to be even more productive, which is just, a cool thing in hockey. But just overall, it's really exciting to see that the Canadiens are actually playing well and that the lines aren't switching every single game like we were used to. I know right now Laine's been sick, but he's going to come back. And obviously the lines will be back to how they were. But it's just, it's great to see that the Canadiens don't actually really have a fourth line. If anything, like the Canadiens are rolling, a top 2 lines and then they're rolling their bottom 2 lines as if they're both third lines. So it's really cool. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
No, well, not really. And I think it was just going to be a comment more with respect to the time on ice, kind of just to like prove your point a little bit more. I mean, on average, over the last 20 games, you have Jake Evans averaging about 15 minutes a game. Lane Hutson's playing 22. Suzuki's at about 19. Cole's at about 18. Heineman's at about just south of 12. Slav is about just south of 16. I mean, as you could see, I'm going to, and take this for what it's worth. The Habs lineup on paper is a more skilled version of the Seattle Kraken in the sense that they do have top end talent and a decent amount of it at that. But they also do have guys that could kind of just are plug and play guys, very versatile, very flexible in any position. I mean, if you told me that next game you had to put Jake Evans on the second line right wing because of an injury, I'd be like, okay, it's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world. The guy is so
Mhm.
versatile and can kind of play any spot. Emil Heineman, he has the offensive upside to play in a top six role or a middle six role if you asked him to. My point is that when this team is healthy, it has a lot of flexibility, a lot of, you know, moves to make. And I think that just goes to show of right now, obviously, this Canadiens team right now on the brink of a playoff spot, very impressive in and of itself. But are they a playoff team? Are they a sustainable playoff team? No, they're gonna require a bit of experience. They're gonna require a bit more. They're gonna need some of our pieces that we've drafted and acquired over the years to make an entrance into this lineup and do something. But it doesn't change the fact that they're showing signs of compete. They're showing signs that we're quote unquote in the mix, as Kent Hughes likes to say. And I think that's all we can ask for as Habs fans at this given moment.
Yeah. And again, like just the fact that there's players this year who are taking an extra step, you can really see how that's been affecting our position in the standings. I know Kirby had a really tough start of the season, but that was, you have to expect that when you tear your ACL and MCL. So it took him about 36 games to get his footing back. But since he's been producing again, the Canadiens have been super successful. You look at Laine, obviously coming into the lineup, scoring goals. Hudson, absolute difference maker, now leading rookies in points, which is crazy as a defenseman, like the third defenseman ever to be leading the league in points by this point in the season. So, again, Heineman, you look at Evans taking that next step and then adding a guy like Carrier who, maybe you look at that acquisition, it's just like, oh, we're adding another defenseman, but he brings a factor that the Canadiens haven't had in a long time in terms of a right shot D. He brings defensive experience, which is what the Canadiens lack so much. So, you can only imagine what's going to happen when you add a skilled forward like Demidov and, bringing in all our other prospects like Roy, Beck, Kapanen, Mayu in the future. It's just really exciting to think about. And not to mention, you got to add in Jacob Dobesh here, who's come in as a very solid rock in nets. Unfortunately, Primo hasn't exactly lived up to his performances from last year, but Dobesh has come in, looked really, really good. And who knows, like, what's going to happen in the future? This is a team that's rebuilding, but looking better than some other teams that have been rebuilding for such a long time, like Buffalo, Detroit, and I know Ottawa's having a solid year, but you can even argue that the Canadiens are having a better rebuild than Ottawa since it's been like 3 years shorter. So if you were to rank rebuilds right now in the Atlantic Division, even outside of the Atlantic Division, so let's say Ottawa, Detroit, Buffalo, Chicago, Anaheim, and San Jose, how are you ranking the Canadiens among those teams?
Good question. So you have San Jose, Anaheim, Montreal, and then some of the Atlantic Division teams, correct?
And Chicago.
And Chicago. I mean, Chicago for me right now would be very, very low on that list, just given the fact that they haven't been able to surround Bedard with pretty much anything aside from going out and getting Lev Shunov in the draft. I obviously, Kurashev is a sustainable player, and I think that Kirby Reichel could be something that Frank Nazar also. But truth of the matter is that I don't think that they've done enough. I would put San Jose at probably 1 or 2. Give or take. I think that, Macklin Celebrini has already accelerated their rebuild, and they've already have some significant pieces in place. William Eklund, Sam Dickinson on the back end, Will Smith. I think that I'd put the Habs top three. Top three. I don't know where exactly. I don't know if I'd rank them ahead or behind San Jose. I do think that in the Atlantic Division, so what we're looking at Detroit, Buffalo, and the Sens pretty much, correct? Because the rest are not in rebuilding phases. Yeah, top three for sure. Top three for sure. And the truth is that it's going a little bit faster, at least in my opinion, than I would have thought originally.
I honestly might rank them 1 just in terms of a rebuild, not what they have in their system. Because, like, when the Canadiens made the finals, was San Jose still like a competitive team? I can't really remember.
I think they were kind of, they kind of flatlined.
Because they weren't bottom of the barrel.
No. Because the last time that they've had a top pick was, well, sorry, not the last time. Like the earliest time that I can remember was William Eklund. At least,
that was like
that's
7th.
20. Correct. And
Yeah,
that was like 20, what, like 2020, 2021 maybe? Or is that
yeah,
too early?
I think so. No, I think you're right. So,
Right.
just in terms of a rebuild, I feel like the Canadians have been the most successful in the shortest amount of time because Ottawa's been in a rebuild for like 7 years now.
Right.
And although they're doing better now, it's just been such a long time and they've gone through a lot of different players. But I honestly think the Canadians have been rebuilding the fastest and have been the most successful. I know it's just a bit of a very short successful stint right now, but I don't think any of those teams even ever touched a wild card spot in their rebuild. So I
No,
think I
I
have the
think
Canadians
that's a good
one.
point. No, that's a very good point. I think that's a very good way of putting it. Just to kind of also put in perspective, by the way. So, um, William Eklund was 2021 seventh overall. The year prior in 2020, they drafted 31st overall. So I'm assuming there was a trade of picks there, right? Because they
Yeah.
weren't.
They
They
lost the
drafted Ozzy Weisblatt,
Carlson. I think they lost the Carlson pick, no?
right?
Or maybe it was that
Well,
was too early.
no, I think you're right because that's the year that the Sens had drafted Tim Stützle and Jake Sanderson, right? I think there was something that went on there,
Oh
right,
yeah.
in terms of the
Yeah.
picks. So I think you're
Yeah.
right. Nonetheless, I mean, your point is very, very valid, and I do think that from a year-to-year perspective, the Canadians have had the most growth, the most progress. I think that if you go back to our last episode, October 15th, our converse like Liam, we were watching every game, but I was miserable. I was like, this is
Yeah.
like, how did we regress? How did we
Mhm.
take a step back? And the truth is, it wasn't a fair reaction given that Laine hadn't played a game yet. But I think that part of it was that we were expecting Laine to come back like I knew that we knew that the timeline was beginning of December, beginning of January, but I didn't think I don't think we realized how soon that would actually be, you know?
Mhm.
And you know what? I'm gonna put it up again here, Liam, because I think that underratedly, and I know you spoke about it, but underratedly, Alex Carrier has been a rock for this team. And people that are watching might make the comment or listening might make the comment, oh, it's Alex Carrier. You know, he was just a gritty guy, undersized, played heavy minutes in Nashville, hurt here and there, but never was never a convincing top 4 guy on any team. That's very fair. The truth is that I'm not even going to talk about Alex Carrier the player. I'm going to talk about what he's done for others, just like what he did, just like what Laine did for the rest of our forward core. What he did is he brought stability to that right side. Justin Barron was a right shot D that was always rotating in and out with Jaden Struble and Arbor Jacki. What happens when Carrier comes in? He's played every game so far since he's been traded to the Canadiens. And not only that, he's kept the same D partner in Caden Gooley the whole time that he's been in Montreal. Caden Gooley is a natural left shot D who was playing the right side before this trade. Now you're telling me that the Caden Gooley, the guy that we drafted early on in the first round 3-4 years ago, is able to play the side that we drafted him as? I mean, that in and of itself is so valuable. Jacki has been a rock just because he's been consistently playing with one D partner in David Savard. Right now it's Jaden Struble, but that's because of injury. It's stabilized everything, Liam. And now all of a sudden we have another guy that can log heavy minutes, and it's not just going to be David Savard playing 25 minutes and needing to block 10 shots a game. So that goes such a long way too.
It's crazy how keeping consistent lines can lead to success, and I feel like that's something that all Habs fans have wanted for the past like 3 years now. So again, it's interesting to look at these combos and see how much success they've had. Even looking at Hudson playing better with an offensive minded D-man like Matheson rather than playing with a defensive guy like Savard. And I saw this tweet that talked about how a guy like Hudson will play better with a defenseman who has a similar mindset to him rather than a guy like Savard who maybe when he has the puck isn't thinking the same thing as Hudson. So like the last 10 games, we can look at the success the Canadians have had and just take comparing it to the lines. You know, it reflects our position in the standings. So it's nice to see how Hudson's been cleaning up his plus minus. I know it's just such a team stat, but you know everyone's saying Hudson can't play defense. He's not going to win the Calder. Well, take a look at the last 20 or whatever 15 games, and you can see how his defensive play is trending in the right direction. And I guess you can say that a big reason of that is playing with a consistent line mate.
No, 100%. I'm all for that. I think we've said that for a good amount of time now. Under Dom Ducharme, under Michel Therrien, it was a blender every single game. And I think that the understanding or the concept of whether it's in hockey or whether it's in any other sport or whether it's in life in general, doing something with someone consistently and getting used to, like working with someone in an office setting, you become better at doing your job with that person rather than getting a new partner every single day.
You're
And
right.
this is a job. This is ultimately a job. And for guys to be expected to create chemistry with a new line mate every single game or every second game, in my opinion, or in your opinion also, I assume, is practically impossible. So
Yeah.
I also give a lot of credit to Martin St. Louis for just putting Pizzetta on that second line right wing right now, or left wing, excuse me. I think at the end of the day, obviously Pizzetta shouldn't be in that spot on any team. But the truth is that why break up the other lines right now? Like, it just makes zero sense. Laine will
Yeah.
be back probably on Friday, hopefully, because I don't know how long flu-like symptoms usually keep someone out, but hopefully
Mhm.
not longer than 3 games
Same with
or
Savard
three
too.
games. Yeah.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully he could come back.